All right, in this video, we are going over circles. So we've got four different types of questions. So this first one is on area, and then we'll do circumference, and then a couple of questions that involve radians, which can confuse people sometimes. So let's get into it. So we start off with, they tell us area is 100 pi. What is diameter? That's just D is diameter. Okay, so first thing we want to know is the formula for area, right? Area equals pi r squared. And yes, this is definitely circles. You got a couple of little formulas to memorize, right? Not long formulas, right? But area equals pi r squared. If you don't know that, you won't be able to solve the problem, right? So area is pi r squared, right? And then in the question here, they told us that area is 100 pi. So we can just say that we'll just substitute that 100 pi for area, right? Because that's the same thing, right? Area and 100 pi are the same thing, because up here it says, right here again, just make sure you got that area equals 100 pi. So then you can just substitute because they're the same, right? Equals pi r squared. Okay, so after that, we just go from 100 pi equals pi r squared, right? And if we divide both sides by pi, right, just get rid of the pi, then we'll just be left with, we'll put the r squared over here on the left, equals 100, right? So we just divided each side by pi to just kind of cancel those guys out. R squared is 100, and then we're just going to square root both sides, get rid of that squared. Square root of 100 is 10, which is radius. Okay, but they asked for diameter, right? So when you have a circle, radius is half, right? So that would be radius right there, right? Which would be 10. But diameter is the whole thing, right? So diameter is twice as long as radius, right? Always, right? And so because of that, we know 10 times 2 is 20. And so the diameter is going to be 20. And that's our answer. Okay, so that's how we do that one. So that's a more complicated area type problem. Sometimes they might just, give you the radius, right? Right. So if they just said, right, with our formula right here, area equals pi r squared, and they just said the radius is 5, what's the area? That would be a simpler question, right? Then it's just 5 squared, which is 25 times pi. So that would be 25 pi. Okay. Area equals pi r squared. That's our first question. Okay, next one. If the radius is 5, what is the circumference? Okay, and so we need to know for this one, this is another one of our formulas we just got to know. Circumference is pi times diameter. Okay, and we start off with radius being 5, right? And like we just did, right? We just did this thing where that's radius, right? Diameter's twice as big. So if the radius is 5, diameter is 10. Okay, and then if we just plug in that 10 right there, then we're just left with an answer of circumference is 10 times pi. Okay, so that's pretty straightforward. You just got to know that circumference equals pi d and then substitute in, and that diameter is twice radius, always. Okay, so there's our two. Those are the more straightforward questions. And then we get into radians. Okay, so in this one, they want to know how many radians are in 45 degrees. So when you're being asked to convert degrees into radians, you take the number of degrees, which is 45, for 1, 45, and 45 are 1, the same thing, and you multiply it by pi over 180. Okay, so just a step that you have to memorize, and once you've done that, then the math really pretty simple, right? You just take the degrees, multiply it by pi over 180, and then you have converted degrees into radians. And so in this case, we can cross cancel and make that 1, make that 4. And once we've done that, we have pi over 4 for our answer. Okay, so the math not really all that complicated. If it was me, I would not get into why do we multiply it by pi over 180 and what really is a radian, right? To just the simplest way to get to the point where you can solve this problem and be ready for it on the test and move on with your life is just to know when you're converting into radians, multiply the degree number by pi over 180. Okay, and one more circles question. Okay, so in this one it'll always say in a unit circle, the arc length is 0.5, and then what is the angle? And again, the angle is measured in radians. Okay, and so your rule here, if you're dealing with arc length and radians, is that the arc length always equals the angle, right? So the arc length here is 0.5, and so that means the answer is going to be 0.5 radians. That's all you got to know. All right, arc length is 0.5, 0.5 radians. If we'd said the arc length is 2.3, that would be 2.3 radians. So pretty simple to remember. Just know that they are the same. And with that, that is everything you need to know for circles.